Hi.
Hello?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. Fine, right?
What's
Uh,
that?
yeah. What's up? Like, it's part. Actually, it's like I'm studying in Raffles, Singapore right now.
Mm-hmm.
Currently studying digital media design,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm in like the last degree year. So I'll be completing with my degree in June.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, the thing was like I wanted to do a career in gaming. So like, I'm interested in game design or game art basically. Those two are my two interest and field. So
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know about like what are the how would you get a job in industry? What kind of education is required for the field and all that? That's why I wanted to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you work in Ubisoft?
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm working in Ubisoft Kiev right now. I've
okay.
just finished the Far Cry 5 as a game
Oh
designer.
wow, you work on Far Cry 5.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for it actually.
and yeah, I'm working on a new project right now that's not been announced yet.
Okay. Oh wow, that's good. Oh,
But yeah, regarding getting inside the industry, well, it's basically just you have to knock at the door. That's about what it takes. Because honestly, I'm not sure about the artists how they get in there.
yeah.
But for the game designers, we have people who came from various kind of industries and fields.
Okay.
There was one occasion where I worked with a game designer who used to be a bartender.
What? Oh.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
just came in and said like he just applied to us and said like, yeah, I'm interested in games. I
So
know how
did
to
you have background
how
any in
games are made.
designing or something?
Well, he didn't have any specific skills, and we were not looking for any specific skills.
Oh,
He just had the right mindset
wow.
and the right ideas of how things need to be done.
Oh, wow.
He wasn't like, I don't like monetization in free to play games. Everything should be like free to play,
Yeah,
not play to win.
yeah,
Like people usually come in like that as gamers, and they don't really understand what's the like the concept of games are all about,
yeah,
why we make them in the first place. They just want to make stuff that they would like to play, and this is not what we do.
yeah, yeah.
Primarily, yeah.
And what did
So the
you
main
study? What did you study?
was that.
Like, what did you study to become? Like, did you study, do any course, particular course for the. Did you do any particular course for the game design?
Yeah, I get a degree in game design in the Art Institute of Vancouver.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, it was a 2 year degree,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
it got me prepped for most of my career.
Oh, and after that
Uh,
you started working. You didn't do anything else.
well, I didn't actually look and try to do anything else. Well, the problem with me was that uh, when I left Canada, when I
Oh,
finished my degree,
yeah.
I came back to Ukraine,
Okay.
and I was basically immediately offered a job.
Oh,
But in my case, it wasn't the job as a game designer; it was a job as a producer.
oh, okay.
Because prior to that, I had experience in management and the wholesale business.
Oh,
Yeah, so I started that way. But I still did game design because we were short on stuff, and I was like the only the game designer with a degree, so I could actually do some serious stuff. Like we were working on the RPG at the time,
okay.
so I did like the combat mechanics and the RPG systems, things like that.
What kind of software do you use, bud?
For the soft, well, most of the time we're just using the Windows suite.
Okay.
I mean Microsoft suite. It's the Excel, PowerPoint. Sometimes we use Word,
Okay.
but Word is being most of the time it's being replaced by things like Confluence.
Okay.
So it's like an online documentation tool where you post your information so everybody, the entire team, could see it.
And what about designing tools?
There are no designing tools in particular. There are
No.
only those you can use for your prototypings.
Okay.
So it's a Unity and Unreal,
Yeah, Unity
or
and Unreal. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
For example, Ubisoft, we're not allowed to use Unity, but we have a
Oh.
special license with Unreal.
Oh, okay, like
Uh,
that. So you guys use Unreal.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if I need to make a prototype, I usually fire up Unreal, make a quick prototype using those blueprints,
Okay.
and just show it out to the team.
Oh, that's cool.
Because ideally, a game designer is the person who talks a lot. It might sound funny, but that's what we do. Like 60% of our work is just talking. We talk to the
Talking.
programmers. Yeah,
Oh.
we make presentations. We're talking to the programmers,
Oh.
making sure that they know what needs to be done, and making sure they understand what needs to be done. Because in general, people believe that game designers write lots of documentation, and we do. But most of that documentation is not being read by the team.
Oh,
It's being just for ourselves to kind of validate the idea.
so you guys
But
basically do write all the gameplay mechanics and everything, right?
yeah, well, you have to do that because if you're working in the team of game designers, those are going to be the only people who are going to read that stuff and actually validate it.
Oh,
So if when I'm writing, I send it to all game designers so they could validate. I sometimes send it to the managers and the producers so they could evaluate how difficult this feature will be to create.
okay.
But when it comes to programmers and artists and animators, I usually make up a presentation for them, describing general idea,
Oh,
and then make sure I put a lot of images in there and lots of graphs. Walk through the documentation, look through it, and understand what's up.
oh, okay. Pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really important to showcase your stuff visually because, as I said again, people don't read. They don't like reading for some reason.
That we have presentations, so we need to put more images than text. So
Yeah. And it's way better for everybody to understand because when you are reading versus when you are watching something visually, when you're watching your mind, it's easier to remember stuff and
Yeah.
learn faster
True,
through that. So when people, especially programmers and artists, they don't have much time to sit down and understand your grand ideas and grand schemes that you try to create. They just want to know what needs to be done.
Okay.
And by providing them images, you're making that stuff way easier.
Oh,
Except for like small caveats, like there could be things that, like very, say specific mechanics that needs to be done
okay.
for a specific feature. Let's say, well, what could be a good condition? Well, let's take a Gears of War,
Yeah, Gears of War.
and they have a chain gun
Okay.
where you can fire up and basically cut people.
Yeah.
So there could be like an edge case where there are some monsters you cannot cut, and this is
Okay.
something you will not be able to put in the
Can't-
image,
yeah,
saying like,
okay.
there could be like a line of the text saying like, you cannot cut these guys,
Okay,
the list
yeah.
of these people. Yeah, so the artists will not care. The programmers are gonna be like, okay, I got that, when they start working on it.
Okay. And do designers need to do programming a bit? Like, they-
We don't have to
Okay.
but it really depends on the company.
Oh.
Because I'm the type of the person who doesn't like to specialize in something specific. I like to do a lot of stuff
Oh.
and
Okay.
be like a jack of all trades.
Okay.
So I do know programming, I
Oh,
do
yeah.
know modeling, animation, and stuff like that. This is
Oh.
something that we've been taught in the institute.
Oh. Okay.
But there are lots of game designers and the companies who just want designers for a specific task.
Okay.
So if you just know how to do monetization for games, that's totally fine by them. You're going to be working in Excel with the HTML files, and that's about it.
Oh.
You're never going to touch a code.
Oh. Okay.
Ubisoft is like that. When I'm coming to programmers saying like, guys, I need this editor and I need to create a code for this specific feature,
Yeah.
they would basically tell me to just buzz off because I'm not supposed to touch the programming code,
Okay.
despite the fact that I still
So
do.
they are like separate departments for each and everything.
But it depends on the company. There are some companies like Guerrilla Games
Oh, good.
that
Yeah.
have dedicated game designers who work on the technical stuff.
Oh.
They're
Okay.
actually called technical designers,
Oh.
who basically take the feedback, take the documentation from the game designers, and they implement all of that into the game.
Oh.
So they're working with editors like Unreal Engine. Similar to Unreal Engine, they have their own proprietary engine, but still they are writing scripts, they're
Oh.
implementing models, they implement animations, they put them all together and make sure that the stuff is actually working in the game.
Okay.
So that's something that is kind of depending which you want to do, which one do you prefer.
Okay.
If you want to be like a programming artist, technical designer, you can do that. If you want to be a more art directed
Yeah.
game designer,
I'm
yes,
more
that's the
keen
word.
on art directed.
Then you should become a regular game designer, or you could start with level design.
Okay.
Because level design usually involves a lot of, for some companies, it could involve modeling and
Okay.
doing some basic animations
Okay.
for your levels. Mission designer, I don't think they do. They don't do any like drawings. They do scripting.
Okay.
But then a regular game designer, like I use Photoshop all the time,
Oh.
every single day, because I have to create those images. I have to do the markups on the markups and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes I actually make the markups themselves. Like if there's a UI,
Oh,
I put up the actual window of the UI, showcasing to the artist, and get feedback like, "Dude, why did you do our work for us?"
okay.
Stuff like that happens.
Yeah.
This is just easier to sell because most of the time when you design the feature, you're being given like a specific thing to design.
Yeah.
You don't really choose which feature you want to design. You've been told like, I want by a creative director that I want like in Far Cry example, I want guns for hire.
Yeah.
Basically,
Gunfire.
people
Yeah.
who are going to be joining as a militia.
Yeah.
And you have to make sure that you have right systems for it. There's a way to control them. There's a way to progress through them. There's a way to unlock these guys. There's monetization. There's a balance, and all of that stuff is on Game Designer.
Oh, that's.
But you have to follow the general idea of how this thing works. You cannot just create an alien and say like, this is going to be your guns for hire, and you can switch between that alien and yourself.
Okay.
Creative director is just going to come in and say like, no, this is not what I had in mind.
Okay. So,
So yeah, there is.
are there like one game designer, or like there is a group of which work on the designing part?
There are a lot of game designers,
Okay.
especially in Ubisoft. We're trying to hire a lot of people to make sure the games have been delivered in the timely measures. So let's say on Far Cry 5, I believe we were over 1,000 people working on the game.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big team.
Not all the time, but at one point there's like a
Okay.
peak.
Oh.
And yeah, designers. I think there were like just on the gameplay side, there were like 6 or 7.
Okay.
But then there are different departments like the representation designers who work on the different menus.
Oh.
There are UI designers who help to create those menus and
Yeah.
integrate them inside the game. So there are like, it could be like 50 designers of various
Wow.
kind
Wow.
on the project. But you don't necessarily talk to all of them. Like
Okay.
I never talked to more than 3 people from design department just because we had leads,
Oh.
and I'm mostly talking to the leads, and they then point out the people that I need to speak to kind of do my stuff.
Oh, okay.
Because for me, I was working on the PC version, and I was working on the options for the consoles and for the PC.
Oh.
So I didn't design particular any feature in the game, except for those that are PC specific.
Okay.
But I had a touch in. I had to do whatever I could to make sure that all the features that we have are going to be adopted for the PC for the mouse and keyboard.
Oh, okay.
So
Like
when
the
you open up like when you open up like a weapon wheel in the game,
Yeah.
it's going to be different on the PC than it is on consoles.
Yeah. It's true. Yeah. True.
Yeah, so that's kind of stuff. And I have to talk to those people. I have to get their general idea about the feature, what this thing is all about,
Yeah.
so I could adapt it properly.
Okay. So how long did Far Cry 5 take to develop, like the whole game?
The whole game, I'm actually not sure. They've been working on it for a while, maybe 5, maybe 6 years.
5,
But
6
the problem
years.
is like, yeah, but what you have to understand is that it doesn't mean they were working like the entire like 1,000 people working for 5 years. No,
Okay.
the way it works usually is we start with concept.
Okay.
The concept stage, well, there are multiple stages. There's a concept stage, there is a pre-production, production, alpha, beta, goldmaster, and release,
Oh,
and then
okay.
post-production.
Oh.
So at different stages of the game, there are different number of people at different departments are joining you. So when there is a concept stage, there are probably about 10 to 20 people working
Oh, that's it.
on the game.
Okay.
They're mostly programmers. They have to design the engine. They have to make sure that the architecture is there. They can support the entire idea,
Yeah.
and the concept of the game is already on paper. They do the research. I mean, the team that were working on the Far Cry 5, they went to Montana.
Oh, they did
So they-
actual research. on
Yeah.
that. Oh.
They even released us a special limited issue book that described their adventure.
Wow.
It was like 300 pages of the book with
Oh.
with photos, with images,
Oh,
with
that's
basic
it.
description of the region.
Wow.
Yeah, so they did their research. They've been there, I think, for a month,
Oh,
just making sure that they captured the right feel of Montana.
yeah.
And yeah, after you finish the concept stage, you have to present it to the basically the lead studio, which in our case was Montreal, and to the Paris studio, which is like the headquarters.
Okay.
And when that stuff is done, you've given the green light to start pre-production. That's when you get some designers. That's when you get some modelers. Basically, all the leads, all the skeleton of the team is being formed.
Okay.
And once you hit the production,
Everyone.
then everybody just join in.
Okay.
and then slowly start to decline as you reach the
Really?
after the as you reach the closer to release, more people are leaving
Okay.
because modelers and game designers have nothing to do.
Okay.
Everything is being designed. There's nothing to put in because we're short on time.
It's basically programmers.
Well, you have to go to a different project.
Okay.
That's what happened to me. Like I stopped working on Far Cry in October.
Oh,
and
and
the
now
game
you're
started
working on the new
released.
one.
Yeah, because there was a plan. The plan for the very beginning, the game designers are going to leave at a specific point
So,
because there's nothing for us to do.
yeah.
There are only a few people that are staying for support.
Okay.
They're going to provide the last moment changes if something is going to change
Okay.
because we don't always have time to ship everything.
Okay.
Something has to be cut at the last moment, and we need a different decision to be made, like solve a problem,
Okay.
because that's mostly what we do.
Oh,
When like the design features being formed, when we have hit our production of the feature, we're talking to all of the team members all the time, making sure that they can actually do what they've been assigned to do.
wow.
Specifically, it's a problem with programmers because programmers cannot always evaluate features properly
Okay.
because they have no idea how much it's going to take, and they probably have never done that stuff before.
Okay.
So with the artists and modelers, they're going to tell you this model is going to take 3 days, and that
Yeah.
one's going to take a week. So it's easy for them to give you a deadline. But for the programmers, you never know how many issues that they're going to be,
Yeah.
how many bugs they're going to becomes a problem. Like there is a feature that we thought is going to take a week, but in reality it's going to take us a month to
Oh.
implement.
Okay.
Game designers have to think of their feet and make sure that we are making the correct cuts on this feature, that we're reducing its scope,
Okay.
and that
So
it doesn't
that
become
happens
like a feature
fast.
free.
Oh. How many years have you been working in the industry?
Well, I've started 8 years ago,
Oh, 8 years.
and I've been working professionally. Well, before my actual first official job, I already released 2 games.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I've finished the Art Institute in like 6 years ago.
Oh,
But I count these years that I've been in Institute as the working experience because I still got 2 games from that. And from the most part, we've just been making lots of prototypes, lots of games.
okay.
That's everything they taught us.
Oh, okay.
So the idea was that game designer is supposed to be able to finish the game from start to finish without needing help from anybody.
Oh, okay. Understand. Actually, I'm
It's-
planning to do a course after my degree completes, so in game design or game art, basically. In Canada only, basically, I'm looking. So,
Well, I'm not sure how the degrees in the game design evolved since then,
yeah.
because I know when I was still studying, they never had a master degree for game design.
Yeah, I
I
don't
have no idea what they're studying right now in master's degree. I mean, I think they have 3 to 5 years. And
Yeah.
that's crazy, but that's amazing
yeah.
because a lot of game designers that have never been through the official education, they don't know the basic ropes. Like they might be advanced in some ways,
Okay.
in some like specific
Yeah.
areas,
Yeah.
but they're missing the fundamentals. You always have to make sure that they know the basics of the game design,
Okay.
and they're actually easy to cover,
Okay.
but they're really hard to understand, to actually comprehend. But somebody is telling you that, well, your feature is supposed to be cut because we don't have enough time, people get upset.
Yeah.
But from the design students who get used to it, just basically cutting their features left and right because they have to ship on time,
Yeah.
this is something of normal. So I never get upset when something needs to be cut because I know this for the better
Yeah.
for the better of the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other big problem is that the game designers who did not have a lot of practice, they create the games that they would like to play themselves, which isn't always an option, isn't always an issue, but also isn't always an option.
Okay.
Like you could be making on the, let's say, a match 3 game, which not many people actually decided to work on. Everybody wants to work on the action flicks,
Yeah.
or the RPGs, or the sport games.
Yeah.
Did you been assigned a mobile game? Can you still do it? Yes. Are you going to be excited? Probably not.
Yeah.
But most of the game designers just have to deal with that because you're not making the game for yourself. You're making it for a specific audience.
Yeah. True.
And sometimes it becomes an issue when you're discussing things with the, let's say, modelers or the programmers.
Okay.
They have their own ideas, and they have to pitch you those ideas. They have to give you some feedback.
Oh.
And what actually happens is that they try to explain example from the game that they actually liked a lot, without realizing that they are a very minor like portion of the audience from the game.
Okay.
Usually they are hardcore gamers and they want stuff to be hardcore for everybody, but that doesn't mean that it has to be done that way, because most of the players are not hardcore.
Oh.
They don't like grinding, they don't like playing the games like 4 hours a day and stuff like that. So you have to really know your audience and design for that specific audience, despite the fact that you yourself could be a hardcore gamer and you want to have you want to do the best for the game, for those gamers.
Are you a hardcore gamer?
I'd like to think so. I play a lot,
Okay.
but then again, I never go like too deeply into one specific game because I have to switch from one game to another.
Okay.
Like for example, last month I think I played 6 different games.
Oh, 6 different.
Some of them, yeah, I didn't finish most of those games because I just don't have time. But I mostly do that stuff for the research.
Which is your
if I
favorite
don't
game?
music- which games?
Which are your favorite games? Like
Um,
time.
my favorite game, hands down, is Dreamfall.
Okay, I haven't
It's the
played that.
game. Yeah, it's a game developed by Fancom.
Okay.
It's a Norway company.
Okay.
It's a pretty old game.
Okay.
I think it was released in 2000.
Oh, okay.
But the stuff I like about this game is basically its story and the world.
Oh,
They recently released like the Dreamfall chapters. It's like the continuation of the story,
oh,
but it's not that good. The original was way better.
okay.
But it's just me. I mean, there are lots of games that I liked from the last year. For example, Persona 5.
Oh, Persona
Or
5,
this
yeah.
year, Monster Hunter. It's fucking
Yeah,
amazing.
Monster Hunter. I haven't played that yet.
Yeah, well, I have to discover all those games. I have to make sure I play them. And for the most part, I'm not even playing the games that I like. It's just those games that I have hype. Lots of hype around. And if it's like a different genre and the game has an interesting mechanic, I have to try out that specific mechanic and make sure that I understand what's up and why the people love it.
Oh, that's,
So recently I played the JRPG called Neptunia.
oh, I don't know
Mega Dimensions Neptunia something.
about that. Okay.
It's a crazy Japanese game which is ridiculously popular,
Yeah.
which I don't really like myself, but I understand why people like it. But there is a reason why there's an audience that is going to enjoy that kind of game.
Oh. So basically,
Yeah.
you're doing research side by playing games.
Yeah.
Uh,
I usually switch a lot, and there's a huge backlog of games that I need to play,
oh,
and I usually play the games from different consoles as well.
okay.
So not only PC or PS4, I actually have 3DS,
Oh,
I have Wii U,
oh.
and I have PS Vita as well.
Not about Xbox.
No, I don't have Xbox. I used to have Xbox 360,
No? Okay.
but not anymore. It just broke at some point. I mean, the first release of the Xbox 360, they had like 40%, like 40% of the consoles were burning out in the first year,
Oh,
and mine was one of them.
oh,
So
shit.
that's
That's
okay.
bad.
I don't have Xbox anymore.
That's sad.
But then again, I might buy it at some point,
The new
but
one.
I don't really need to. Yeah, I don't really need to. I still have way too many consoles way too many games to go through.
Yeah, true.
But it's just to understand how the people in different consoles interact and what they do best.
Yeah.
Like, people might be thinking that games on 3DS are very childlike and there's nothing to play. But when you start playing it and realize it's one of the best-selling portable consoles in the world, you start to understand there is an audience for it,
Yeah.
and
true,
you start to understand what you actually like.
yeah.
And that's important because you always have to think in perspective.
Yeah. So like for now, for this is the first time I'm making a game like for a mobile game, augmented reality game I'm developing for my final major project. So it's like basically a game where it's based on live location and you go and defuse a bomb. So I'm making it for my mobile Android devices. So I'm developing it from scratch to finish, basically like a prototype. So this is the first time I'm gonna do a design game, like a proper working game.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the thing is like we haven't been taught much of coding and all that, so we'll have to figure out on ourselves all the design part and the software part.
Well, if you're gonna be making your own games, that's fantastic,
Yeah,
because that's actually the only way to showcase that you are experienced as a game designer.
yeah,
And that's something that I talked to at length with my Montreal colleagues. Like, there are people who've been working on Far Cry since the second part.
Oh, second part.
Yeah, there are a lot of like 10, 15, 20 years of experience guys. And they basically told me, like, if you want to become a better game designer, make more games. That's the only way.
Yeah.
Because there's no way to tell your design is fantastic unless somebody actually plays it.
Yeah. True.
And that's kind of the big problem of game development. You can create a mechanic that's perfectly fine on paper. Everybody loves it, but then you put that stuff into the game and it just doesn't work. And shit happens all the time. That's
Yeah.
why we do prototyping.
And
That's why I in particular prefer to prototype.
okay. Prototyping in the sense you make a working title, like a demo kind of a thing.
Well, we usually don't do demos at all because
Okay.
they're not really custom. Like, if you want to just showcase your stuff to the people, the demo reel is the best way to go.
Oh, okay.
It's gonna have like a video that's gonna be pretty short, just about a minute, showcasing your top 3 projects that you worked on.
Okay.
But I'm not sure how popular that is with recruiters because most of the time they look at your resume and they're gonna tell you, well, you should have different bullet points describing what have you done on this project
Okay.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I also have a website,
Yeah. Okay.
but I have not seen huge progress on the website myself. There are not that many recruiters that actually visit the websites.
Okay. They don't check the portfolio website isn't that important.
Well, you can still have a portfolio website,
Okay.
but I know for sure that unless they're already interested in you, then they're gonna go there. And if they are, they're basically gonna ask you, well, can you showcase your portfolio for us? And you might already have your portfolio on the website.
Yeah. True. Yeah.
So it's still convenient,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't bother. Like at my point, I'm not making demo reels because it's just unnecessary. But as a student, I used to,
Okay.
and it was very important for many students that you basically showcase what you have done and why is this interesting and fun.
Oh, that's good. So I'm actually right now making a portfolio website. It's not complete yet. So like, can I send you like the website once it's done so that you can review it?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So, thank you.
I'm probably not the best judge of websites. My website has been done in Wix.
Yeah, even
which
I'm
is-
making it in Wix actually.
Yeah, well, it works.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really quick. It's fast.
Yeah, true.
I never seen any problems with it.
Yeah, that's what.
That's that.
And I'm
Actually,
making
my first website used to be on HTML4,
Oh,
which I do not recommend doing. It's not really cost efficient.
yeah.
It's too long to create, and it looks terrible.
Oh.
That's why I switched to Wix and make my website in about an hour.
Yeah, true. It's very easy. Just upload your work and do the layouts and everything.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
But yeah, definitely keep making your own games.
Yeah.
I would recommend to have a small team of people helping you.
Okay.
Not for the sake of even helping you to make the game faster, but to showcase that you can work in the team. Because this
Okay.
is something really important
Yeah,
for
I know
game
that is
designers.
very important. So basically, I'm gonna mostly do a course. Like I'm going to Canada, mostly there, and do a course. Like I saw, like in Toronto Film School, there's a course for 8 months or something of game design.
Yep.
So I can do that so that I can, because right now I don't have much experience in all the design part of gaming, like for games. So it will be better if I do something like that before going for the professional jobs.
Yeah, that's for sure, because mostly what they're going to do, you're going to be meeting a lot of people from the industry, and they'll be able to see your work and actually give you some constructive feedback on your work.
Yeah.
And this is very important because for me, my instructors changed my perception of game design a lot
Okay.
during my years, because when I was also, like many people, wanted to make games for myself,
Oh.
and they basically taught me not to do that and how to get some pleasure from making games from somebody else.
Okay.
And this is very important because in my case, in my like a study session that we had, from the very beginning we had like 40 people, 40 students in the game design department,
Okay.
and then after the first quarter, only 20 of them left.
Why? How come?
Well, because people just realize it's not something they want to do for their life.
Oh.
Some of them become programmers, some of them went to become modelers, the rest of them just left because they thought it was too difficult.
Oh.
It's not always fun.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And yeah, we started with board games. That's what we did for the very first quarter. Because
Board
we can
games?
code, board games.
Oh.
And it's actually pretty good because board game design is not that difficult from the actual game design, and a lot of the prototypes that we do are still pen and paper.
Okay.
So it doesn't mean like if I have a general idea, I don't have to really go to the Unreal Engine to create it because it's not really. It's gonna take some time.
Yeah.
But if I can quickly make it on paper and just present it to the team, showcase how it's gonna work, it still works. It's still a legitimate way to showcase your ideas, especially early on in development.
That's true. Yeah. So it's pretty like hard also, like designing everything, learning.
Yeah, it's just to make sure that you understand the scope
Yeah.
and you can work within that scope.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they're gonna just give you, you have a week to design the game.
Oh.
So you have to make sure you plan ahead of what you're going to be doing and at which point do you have to have your progress.
Okay.
Because otherwise you're going to be coming to the class with nothing to showcase, saying like, yeah, I have this massive cool idea,
But
which I didn't have time to create, so sorry guys.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
I know. Yeah. It doesn't work out.
But yeah, going to the actual school and getting the education is a really good idea.
Yeah.
But don't think it's going to help you to get a job
I
in
know, yeah.
Canada specifically.
Yeah.
Because in Canada there are lots of students who game released as the game designers.
Okay.
But if you're going to work somewhere that doesn't have dedicated school for game design, this is definitely going to be a plus.
Okay.
Like in my case, I never had a problem getting a job in Ukraine just because of my education.
Okay.
So they were like basically assume that I know my stuff if I've gone through the art institute, and they basically give me a job without even with interviews but without test like projects.
No, they just took you like.
Yeah, they just basically take me in.
Which was the first company you worked for?
It was a small company called Bestway,
Okay.
and they've been around for a while.
Okay.
And there was a company that released a game that was very similar to the Company of Heroes on the PC.
Okay. Yeah. Company
was-
of Heroes. Yeah.
Yeah, it was before Company of Heroes. They released a game that was basically exactly the same thing, but about Soviets. And it was pretty popular. It's still popular in Germany and Europe.
Okay.
It's not so popular in the US and Canada.
Okay.
But it's a huge series, and I was working in that company as a producer, working on the like an action RPG game, like Fallout.
Okay. Fallout. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but unfortunately it was cancelled because the place that we used to work in, right now there's a war going on.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so our office is basically. It's actually funny because our game was about post-apocalyptic Russia,
Yeah.
and our basic concept art looks exactly like reality in that place right now.
Oh shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of funny to think about it, but yeah, lots of people had to leave, and we had to close the project, and I had to move on to something different.
That's really bad.
Yeah, well, life happens.
Yeah.
Can't really. Thankfully, Ubisoft was way more stable. It's really hard to destroy Ubisoft when it's like everywhere in every country,
Yeah,
in every continent, every country.
True. Yeah. Thank you so much for all this. Like it helps a lot.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah. And I'm eagerly waiting for Far Cry 5 also. Yeah.
Hopefully, we're not gonna disappoint.
Yeah. I played the fourth part. It was really good.
Well, this one is way better, that's for sure.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I guess the map is bigger, right, than the previous one. A lot bigger.
Well, yeah, it is. It is bigger, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they actually. I didn't do much of the content design, like the map and the open world stuff.
Okay.
But I never seen them cutting anything from the original idea. And the original idea was, I think, almost twice as big.
Playing Primal actually.
It's an interesting project.
Yeah.
It's actually one of my favorite Far Cry's
Yeah.
because it's so atmospheric.
Yeah, it's totally different from all the previous Far Cry.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely different.
Totally different.
It's more on based on crafting
Yeah.
and
True.
melee combat.
Yeah.
But that's what Far Cry 5 is gonna be all about. It's gonna be a combination of both.
Okay.
It's gonna be lots of crafting,
Yeah.
lots of melee combat, lots of melee weapons,
Oh.
and we kind of combine the fourth and primal together to create the fifth.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So, like, you're working on a new project right now, basically.
Well, I can't really say what my
I
new
know,
project is.
yeah. So when are you gonna like? When is Ubisoft gonna announce it?
Probably at E3.
Oh, E3. Okay, that's yeah. Few months to go. Yeah.
Well, it's still a long way to go, and still we have to pass alpha on this project, but it's getting there. We got a green light, so it's not going to be cancelled anytime soon. We just have to come in and ship it.
Okay, that's pretty good. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
It was
you're
great
welcome.
talking to you. And is it okay if I ask you for anything like in future if I need help, any advice or
Sure,
anything?
sure, no problem.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much.
Yep,
Yeah. Have a good day.
yep. Okay,
Yeah, sure.
see you.
See you. See you.